Good morning, good morning, good morning. Before we get started, how's everybody doing this morning? Amen. You sound like you're blessed in the Lord. Before we get started, I'm going to have my precious wife come up, and she's going to open us up with a patriotic song. Come on, Sister Eve.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm happy because I have a change of clothes. The story is the suitcase were lost, but the suitcases were found. Now, I'm going to take you back a little bit. When I was in school okay, this is better. I don't have the voice, he does. We sang a patriotic song every morning. 50 plus years ago, we sang a patriotic song, we prayed, we pledged allegiance. So my patriotism goes way back. So I'm going to take you back. My country, tears of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. Our Father God, to thee, author of liberty, to thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God our King. We even sang, Amen. Thank you for helping me.
Thank you, Edith. You know, that is so true because I'll be 65 October 10th next week. And it wasn't until 1962 when they, quote unquote, banned prayer and Bible reading from the public schools. And I said in my talk yesterday out in the tent, how was it from the beginning of this nation till 1962, giving glory and honor to God through patriotism and through the Pledge of Allegiance and through the Bible and through Jesus Christ and the gospel, which the foundation of this nation was built, it was constitutional. Then all of a sudden, some rascal somewhere got a revelation in 1962 that it was unconstitutional. You mean to tell me it took them that long to figure that out? Hello, somebody. I got a problem with that. Anyhow, I was thinking about the first seminar with my dear friend Don that just did. And he quoted a scripture, a very obscure scripture in the Old Testament. In 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 10, it's called the Jabez prayer. And Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, oh, that you would bless me indeed, and that you would enlarge my territory, that your hand would be on me, and that you would keep me from evil, that I may not cause pain. So God granted him what he had requested. And our prayers here in the John Birch Society, as a minister of the gospel who is proud to be a Bircher, because like my wife says, I am a patriot, old school patriot, and a minister of the gospel, because the gospel brings freedom. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And the John Birch Society is the organization that believes in liberty and freedom and justice and equality for all. So we're going to talk about in these next few minutes, and I'm going to stop abruptly at 10:30 because I want to have a few minutes for Q&A and also have some housekeeping announcements to make. But we're going to talk about the subject, morality and freedom, America's dynamic duel. We are in a mess in America today. And our founder, Robert Welch, said that the foundation and the root cause of the problems we have in America today are not social, are not these things. These things are effects, but the root cause of the problems in America today are spiritual, based on a lack of true Christian morality. And what we see going on right now, my wife and I, this morning when we got up and turned on the news, we heard about they decided in Washington to change the name of the bailout because nobody likes to bail out a criminal. But now it's a rescue plan. Hello, somebody. So they just flipped the script. Same mess, different day. Then they came back and said they sweetened the pot a little bit. And one of the sweeteners in the pot was tax cuts for people who produce rum in the Virgin Islands in Puerto Rico. What kind of mess is that? Now, what producing rum, Don Q rum, in Puerto Rico have to do with Joe Blow on Main Street? Somebody tell me. A lack of principle and more. And these are the people that we're sending to Washington, God forbid. So we're asking God, even as Jabez did here in the John Birch Society, as Jabez says, we're saying here in the John Birch Society, oh God, that you would bless me indeed. Stevie Kraft, how would you have me to bless me? Bless you. I want you, Lord, through the John Birch Society and through the gospel of Jesus Christ to enlarge my territory. God. I want you to raise me up, give me opportunities to speak far and wide on the subject of morality and freedom. I'm asking you, God, to open doors that no man can shut and shut doors that no man can open, that people may say, hey, I like the idea. That's why Ron Paul is doing what he's doing, because freedom is popular. And as a black American, when people say, well, black Americans don't join the John Birch Society, well, they should. And if God answers my prayer, they will. How do I know that? Because if anything that has oppressed black people for the length of time that we have been here, it's the idea of slavery and bondage. Our people crave freedom, and I'm here to tell them, you'll be free when you join with us in the John Birch Society. The foundations of our freedom as Americans are what? The Bible says if the foundations of a nation are destroyed, what can the righteous do? We find that in the Psalms of David. Our rights do not come from men. They're human rights, but they're given us from on high, from God. Our rights come from God, not from the government. The Declaration says we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And our God-given rights are secured by the foundation of the United States Constitution. The Declaration goes on to say that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men and women, deriving their just powers, not unjust powers, but their just powers from the consent of the governed. We get the government that we have because we've given him our consent. And I've heard people say, not only through this conference, but far and wide, the mess we have in Washington and these state legislatures, instead of us wringing our hands, we put those rascals in, and it's time to say, bye-bye your history. I go to work someplace, and the man tells me, okay, Kraft, I'm going to hire you at a certain salary to do certain job. Can you do it? Yes, sir. Good, you're hired. Then I get in there and do something different. Guess what? He's kicking me under the bus, and rightfully so. But yet we have these rascals who we hire to serve us, to be our public servants. Jesus says the greater one among you will be the servant of all. They go to Washington sometimes with good intentions, but then they become masters and exploiters. What happens? They get there in Washington, and the first thing that happens is they find out that the party bosses run the system. So the party bosses, they take them aside in the back room, and then they massage them a little bit and say, now look, this is how Congress really works. Now, we saw your potential. We got you elected. That's why you're up here. So now You just go along to get along, and you will do fine. In fact, we're going to give you a little sweetener. We're going to put you on a committee that we think that you will be very effective in. So then they put him on a committee, give him a hefty pay increase, and all of a sudden his chest gets puffed up. Now, Joe, guess what? We know when you ran for office and we got you elected that you ran as a strict constitutionalist. We understand that. But there's a bill coming up, and we need your vote. Well, I can't do that, man. I swore to uphold and preserve and protect the Constitution and to put my constituents first. Yeah, Joe, I know all that, and I'm not coming against your principles. But, Joe, we need a yes vote on this. Joe, we got you elected to work with us. Be a team player, Joe. Sound familiar, y'all? So then what happens is Joe say, okay, just this one time. Hello, somebody. The minute he says just one time, he's through gambling. It's over. Because what happens then is they buy him out right then. Then when he votes against his principles, then they say, oh, Joe, you did wonderful. Man, we see you're a real team player. We're going to give you another raise. Now we're going to make you chairman of the committee. So now instead of you came in at 40 grand, now you're making 100 grand. Now, Joe, we're building a bridge to nowhere. We need your vote. Man, didn't I tell you I'd do it once, but not anymore? Joe, you're up for re-election next year. Joe, don't get unreasonable. You want to be reelected. You're making 100 grand. Well, okay. That's how the process works. They break you down through bribery. And if you don't cooperate, you're out of there. But God never said that he sent us to Washington or the state, anything else, to be a professional politician. He said, I sent you there to serve. For he who will be the greatest among you, let him be the servant of all. We have got to go into those capitals, whether it's Washington or the state capital, with the mindset, I'm coming here to serve. If the Constitution says I can do it, we're going to do it. If the Constitution says I can't do it, get out of my face. Well, you're not going to get anywhere with that kind of attitude. I didn't come here to park. Then you can't be bought. That's the reason why Ron Paul resonates. His heart and his spirit as a man of principle and conviction works. That's why we need more of us running for these offices so that brother doesn't have to stand alone up there. Freedom principle number 1, all men and women are created equal. Therefore, they have equal natural rights as a gift from their Creator. It is our duty to seek and follow the will of our Creator. The authority of the Creator must be respected for liberty to endure. There is a God-given natural right to life, and there is a God-given natural right to acquire, secure, and use property for safety and happiness. Now, in that first principle that our society puts out, it is laden with Christian, Judeo-Christian principles. God is the giver of our rights, and God is the creator. Some of us that want to believe in secular humanism and macro evolution and all of these things have at it. But like I tell people all the time, it takes a whole lot more faith to believe everything just happened with a boom and a big bang and millions of years by chance than to believe in a supreme being that created the world and everything there is. I told one old boy, Reverend, how about creation talk? All that old church religious talk. Come up in the 21st century. I said, let me ask you a question. What, Reverend? I said, this building we're in, did it evolve or did somebody make it? I said, that camera back there filming me, did it evolve or did somebody make it? Everything that I know of, and you too, sir, that is a creation, had a creator. Now, if everything that I know of and you know of, that's a creation, this podium didn't create itself. And it didn't evolve over a million years and a bright light and a big bang. Somebody made it. I told my surgeon I had an operation. I was sick as a dog, and you Birchers prayed me through. My appendix busted in June. I was in the hospital for 21 days, and the surgeon, he's talking about he going to operate on me. I said, yeah, but before you do, Doc, we're going to pray. He said, okay. My wife is there. We're in the pre-op room. He said, I'll leave while you pray. I said, no, we're going to pray for you. He had on his scrubs. He was ready to roll. I said, Doc, are you right-handed or left-handed? He said, right-handed. I said, give me your cutting hand. I told you to take his other hand. I want his right hand. He's going to put me under and put that knife on me. Lord, he's a surgeon, but you're the chief surgeon. Guide his hand. I said, Doc, I says, you're a surgeon. You're an intelligent man. You work on the human body. How in the world are you going to believe all of these systems in the human body just happen to happen? That's foolishness. Doc said, well, Rev, he said, it is a little easier for me to get my head around that concept. I said, good, you're on your way. Freedom principles number 2. Men and women have the right and duty to form governments to secure their God-given rights. Men and women are authorized by their Creator to defend these rights through the governments that they form, and from this God-given authority proceeds the right and the duty to defend national sovereignty and security of these United States of America. That's why we have the Second Amendment. Because like I heard Larry Pratt say yesterday under the tent, Virginia Tech, Columbine, a lot of these other places wouldn't have happened if the people had been strapped. Wouldn't have happened. You know, I mean, it sounds reasonable when you say gun control, guns kill people, but there's a problem with that. It's wrong. It's wrong on 2 fronts. It's wrong constitutionally, and it's wrong biblically. You all heard Chuck Baldwin last night. He quoted the word where Jesus says, told Peter, put up your sword. I got to put the man's ear back on that you cut off. But if you don't have a sword, buy one, because you're going to need it later on. And the New Testament does not eliminate that. Romans chapter 13 tells us the same thing. When we went to the Ron Paul rally, after Jack spoke, a lot of people came out to the booth. Those of you that were there saw that. So here comes this black guy. He comes straight to me and looks at me as if to say, what you doing in the John Birch Society? And I went on to explain to him that I loved America and that I was an American. I didn't know anything about Africa. I've been to Africa as a part-time missionary. But I was born in America. And America is a superpower. And America is the best country in the world. So don't try to take my inheritance and send me across sea somewhere. So he didn't like that. He didn't like that. So then I said, we started talking about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I said, life is the most important. I said, the Constitution gives us that God-given right to live. So he jumped right on that. He says, well, you pro-lifers don't go far enough because you're pro-life for unborn children, but you're pro-capital punishment. I said, say that to say what? He says, God doesn't approve of that. I said, you don't know your Bible. I says, man didn't come up with capital punishment. God did, right in Genesis 9, 9, verse 6. If any man sheds another man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God created he man. I said in the New Testament, Romans 13 backs up the same principle. I said, what are you talking about? He says, well, that's beside the point. I said, no, that is the point. I said, and beside that, let me ask you a question. I says, how is it that you and people who think like you that have a problem with executing the guilty have no problem with executing the innocent? If abortion is not execution of the innocent, what is? I said, what is more innocent than an unborn child in the womb? He hasn't killed anybody. I said, but you have no problem with that. I said, but the same people who are pro-abortion are anti-capital punishment. So they have no problem with executing unborn innocent babies, but they got a problem and shed crocodile tears about executing a guilty murderer. That is twisted. He got out of my face. Contrasting the purpose of the John Birch Society versus the conspiracy. And when they accuse us of being conspiracy freaks, we believe in a conspiracy, but we're not freaks. When I tell them, I say, hey, any of you guys that think that we're nuts because we believe in conspiracy, I said, if any of you in law enforcement, come up and raise their hand. I says, is there such thing as conspiracy to commit fraud? Conspiracy to commit murder? I said, the Bible's full of conspiracies. What are you talking about? The world is full of conspiracies. Why you have no problem with conspiracies, but when it comes to the government plotting and scheming in secret, you got a problem with it. You're crazy. No, that's nonsense. I heard Don saying his thing. He says, when they come with these false charges, the way that you neutralize a false charge is answer the false charge before they come with it. So when folks come up to me, blacks, whites, or whatever, I was at a restaurant one time. My cell phone goes off. It was my wife calling me. I had to go on a John Birch speaking engagement. I'm sitting with my back in a booth to another man behind me with his back to my back. I'm not paying him any mind. I'm eating, he eating. And I'm telling my wife, I'm getting my clothes out the cleaners, babe. I says, for the speech, John Birch, blah, 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 blah. And this guy, he's eavesdropping. He heard John Birch. I got up, finished my meal, went in the men's room to wash up. He followed me in there. I'm at one sink, he's at the other. He says, did I hear you say, sir, that you are John Bircher? I says, oh, you was eavesdropping. Then I wanted to recruit him. I says, yes. I says, are you a Bircher? He says, no. He says, that's an isolationist organization, and they're reactionary right-wing radicals. How can you, as a black man, be a part of that? I said, not only am I a part of it, I'm a proud member of it. I'm a minister of the gospel, and I'm also one of their speakers. I said, do you think I'd be a member of the Ku Klux Klan? The point was, I turned the argument back on him by making him see the foolishness of his reasoning. I said, tell me what you know, but let me explain to you the real John Birch Society. Guess what he did? He didn't want to hear it. He booked. Because most people don't want to hear the truth. I just tell people simple things like, look, man, when you want to find out something, you don't go to Tom, Dick, and Harry to ask about Joe, Bill, and Jane. You go to the original source. Go online and check out the society for yourself. They won't do it because they're not interested in the truth. So you don't worry about that. But you confront people with truth because truth needs no support. Here, and I'm probably going to end with this one by the time I get through with this slide, and then I'll tell you how this presentation works. The United States of America, which is a constitutional republic, not a democracy, we're going to look at three levels. The government level. We believe through the John Birch Society to keep the United States of America as a free, sovereign, independent nation, and at the government level, we believe in less or limited government. How? By restoring the Constitution. Binding up these madmen and these crooks and these slicksters and con artists that are in Washington or wherever by binding them with the chains of the Constitution. Lock them up, lock them down. The second thing, at the personal level, we believe in replacing big government with more individual responsibility. More responsibility at the personal level by an increasing degree of freely adhering to absolute moral principles. In other words, thou shalt not. Taking the 10 Commandments, which is only 10 Commandments, that if people obeyed the 10 Commandments, we would solve just about every spiritual and social problem in the nation. We would definitely solve all crime problems. Wouldn't be any thievery, wouldn't be any perjury, wouldn't be any homicide. We'd take care of all that. The problems that we're facing in America today are spiritual at their root. And at the cultural level, the collective level, a better world, greater adherence to moral principles by citizens in general. Just think if everybody applied these principles in America, for the most part. Of course, you're going to have some people that are just flat out evil rebels. They will do what they want to do. That's why we lock them up. But if the majority of people decided, man, to live their life morally, we could cut, man, the FBI, the police departments. We wouldn't need any of that because people would self-govern themselves. But now what's the opposite of that? Conversely, the United Nations, the totalitarian one world system at the government level wants total government. That's where we get our word totalitarian. The United Nations wants to bring in one world government. Well, when did that process start? Not with the United Nations, obviously, but the process goes all the way back to biblical times. Because the Bible tells us one day there's going to be a one world government with a one world government leader. And the Bible calls him, Satan incarnate, has a name for him, the Antichrist. And it talks about all religions being merged into one and being controlled by another wicked person called a false prophet. That's why we have religious relativism of these lies about all religions are equal. No, those religions are not equal. There's only one gospel and only one way to God. But people are welcome and people are free to worship God in any way they want. But why? Because this nation was built on the gospel. You try going over in the Islamic nation and preach Jesus. See what happens. But yet Muslims can come to America and set up mosques. Why is that? Because we have a foundation in America of freedom through the gospel. You can't go over in an Islamic country and you better not even say Jesus above a whisper. At the personal level, the UN, through the United Nations and world government, wants an absence of all personal responsibility. In other words, a zero adherence to absolute moral principles. Everything is, every man does what he's right in his own eyes. Judge ye not, lest ye be judged. Everybody makes judgments about everything. That scripture that Jesus said in Matthew is taken out of context. He's talking about, don't you be a hypocrite. You're talking about the log in this man's eye, or splendor in his eye, when you got a 2x4 in your eye. First get the 2x4 out of your eye, then you can see clearly how to get the splendor out of the next man's eye. The context of not judging is don't be a hypocrite. The same standard you hold Joe to, you better be following. That's the right context. Not don't you judge anything. Jesus tells us to judge sin. What kind of mess is that? Well, you can't judge anybody. What? At the cultural level, a world completely amoral, zero adherence to any moral principles. I used to be a prison chaplain in the Missouri State Penitentiary. Murderers would come up to me and say, I shouldn't be here. I says, why? Well, they convicted me of murder. I said, did you do it? Yeah, but nothing. Did you do it? Yeah, I did it. You're guilty. Now there's a consequence. Well, what about all them other folks that committed murder? And because they have money and power, they're not like us. I said, that's beside the point. Payday's coming for them, too. O.J. Simpson got payday today. Found guilty on 13 years to the day that he thought he got away with killing his wife. That's poetic justice. My mama used to tell me, God don't like ugly, son. All right, I'm going to stop with this one. Morality principles number 1. To enjoy the right of political self-government, men and women must be capable of personal self-government, morality, and the virtue of self-control. A people without decency cannot be secure in its liberty. We have all kinds of madness in America today. Pornography, child molestation, perversion, violence, on and on and on. And we wonder why we're losing our liberty. How can you be free when you have all kinds of madness going on? And it's getting worse all the time. Our country is getting darker and darker and darker. The institutions by which the life of liberty is fostered, especially the marriage-based two-parent family, the churches and the synagogues are to be protected and cherished. You can't legislate morality from government, but somebody's morality is always legislated. For example, Roe versus Wade, that's a moral issue. It was legislated falsely to the United States Supreme Court. This mess they're trying to pull now, so-called gay marriage, and I put that in quotes. There is no such thing as that. That's a bunch of nonsense. But that whole idea, that's a moral, spiritual issue. They're trying to legislate that. Last time I checked, in the last 2,000-some years, marriage meant what it always meant, a man and a woman bringing forth kids. I told a guy that was homosexual that believed in that. We went round the mountain. I said, how'd you get here, through gay marriage, or did your mama... I said, in fact, I'll get a little more ridiculous than that. Name one person on planet Earth, just one for me, for reference, that two men had sex and created a baby. The moment everybody turns homosexual, when the last one dies, the human race no longer exists. And you're going to tell me that's a lifestyle? I beg to differ. Seems more like a death style to me. I'm going to walk down the aisle with a man, and he's got a 5 o'clock shadow like I do. That's foolishness. But people are debating that mess with a straight face. Gay marriage. No, man. Well, they should have the right to visit each other in the hospital and take. Look, last time I checked, if I were to go see anybody in the hospital, I just walk in, get a badge, and go visit them. The devil I need a law for to visit somebody in the hospital or to do whatever. No, that's just some mess. Because the minute you bring that mess in and redefine marriage from the truth to a bold-faced lie, then there's no stopping it to come up with any kind of crazy solution. I told a group yesterday, if a man can marry another man, why can't a man take 3 women, 4 dogs, a couple kids, and a horse for good measure and say this is a family? Yeah, it's 10. One more bullet here. Then I'm going to give some housekeeping announcements and open up for the last 15 minutes. The right to self-government entails the right to bear arms, a Second Amendment right, by which tyranny can be resisted and new government established when necessary, according to the Declaration of Independence. That's the reason we need the Second Amendment. Because those of you that have read the Declaration, it says that when government acts the fool, this is Reverend Craft's paraphrase, we have the right to alter it or change it. They got that principle out the Bible. Jesus said you can't put new wine in old wineskins. Otherwise, the skins will break. So what we got to do is we got to clean house in our state legislatures and in Congress and start fresh. And what better people to start fresh than Birchers who know the issues, who are well-grounded, who have done the research and understand the issues and can educate other people and then direct them to the Constitution Party that is already an established political identity to run for office. Right. Because, see, if I go up there, I'm going up there from day one preaching. They're going to say, yeah, that's the preacher. And I'm going to tell them, if it don't line up with the Constitution, don't even bring it to me. I'm going to put a sign on my door if I go up there. No lobbyists allowed. Don't even knock on my door. Eh? If you start that way, then you'll run the race and finish well. All right, we're out of time. Anybody wants to see me, I'll be out in the lobby.